The War Within. Evan Mercer was a man of contradictions. On the surface, he was cold, calculating, and cynical, a perfect representation of someone who had been molded by betrayal and deceit. His eyes, dark and piercing, seemed to hold the weight of his past grievances. Years of bullying had hardened him, and the sting of being cheated on had twisted his perception of trust and love. Adding to his complexity was the fact that Evan was on the autism spectrum, a reality that made his internal world even more intricate. Despite his antisocial tendencies, Evan harbored a secret, a heart that yearned for connection, a romantic soul that longed for the kind of love he had only read about in books. This internal battle between his jaded mind and his hopeful heart was a source of constant turmoil. Evan's descent into crime was almost inevitable. The anger and frustration he felt towards the world found an outlet in illegal activities. He started with minor thefts, but as his skill and confidence grew, so did the scale of his crimes. He became a master manipulator, using his distrustful nature to anticipate and outwit those who might double-cross him. However, the thrill of his criminal exploits never truly filled the void within him. It was during one of his heists that he met Isabel, a woman whose eyes reflected a similar darkness. She was smart, resourceful, and equally disillusioned by the world. Despite his instinct to keep everyone at arm's length, Evan found himself drawn to her. Isabel saw through Evan's tough exterior, sensing the vulnerability he tried so hard to hide. She challenged him, pushing back against his controlling nature and refusing to be intimidated by his pessimism. Their relationship was tumultuous, a constant push and pull between his desire for control and his longing for connection. One night, after a particularly heated argument, Evan found himself alone in their small apartment. The silence was deafening, and he could feel the walls closing in on him. His mind raced with thoughts of betrayal and distrust, yet his heart ached with the longing for reconciliation. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Evan sat down at his desk and began to write. He poured his heart onto the paper, confessing his fears, his regrets, and his deep, unspoken love for Isabel. He wrote about his childhood, the bullying that had shaped his defensive nature, and the heartbreak that had shattered his ability to trust. He wrote about the challenges of living with autism, the constant struggle to understand and be understood, and the isolation it often brought. When Isabel returned, she found Evan asleep at the desk, the letter resting beside him. She picked it up and began to read, her eyes softening with each word. For the first time, she truly understood the depth of Evan's internal struggle. Gently waking him, Isabel looked into his eyes with a tenderness that melted his defenses. "Evan, we can fight this together. You don't have to do it alone," she whispered. Evan's heart raced, torn between his instinct to push her away and his desperate need for her to stay. "I don't know if I can change," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "You don't have to change overnight," Isabel replied. "But you have to let me in. Let us be a team." The days that followed were not easy. Evan's controlling nature clashed with his efforts to trust Isabel. There were times when his pessimism and autism got the better of him, leading to arguments and misunderstandings. But Isabel's unwavering patience and love gradually began to break down his barriers. Evan started to see a therapist who specialized in autism, confronting the traumas of his past and learning to navigate his emotions and social interactions. He began to channel his energy into more constructive pursuits, leaving behind his life of crime. Isabel stood by him, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. In time, Evan learned to embrace the softer side of himself, the romantic heart that had always been there, buried beneath layers of pain and mistrust. He found solace in the love he shared with Isabel, a love that was imperfect yet deeply fulfilling. The war within Evan never truly ended, But he learned to fight it with hope instead of despair, with love instead of anger. And in the arms of Isabel, he found the peace he had always longed for, a reminder that even the most hardened souls could find redemption in the light of love. The battle may never be won, and the road never easy, but with a little hope and good people beside you, you're never truly lost and alone. The end.